The envelope sat on my kitchen table like a loaded gun. Thick, cream-colored paper with my name written in Nathan's careful handwriting. The kind of envelope that changes everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how one night destroyed my entire life. My name is Vesperine Rooke. Everyone calls me Vess. And 3 days ago, I thought I had everything under control. I'm 34, work in HR at Morrison & Associates, and I've always been good at managing situations, managing people, making them see things my way. The morning after the Denver conference, I woke up in my own bed with a splitting headache and fragments of memories I desperately wanted to forget. The hotel bar, too many martinis, Bryce Carroway's hand on my lower back as we stumbled toward the elevator, his keycard sliding into the door of room 412. I rolled over, expecting to see Nathan's sleeping form, but his side of the bed was cold. The alarm clock read 6:47 a.m. He was probably already in the kitchen making coffee, getting our 7-year-old daughter Amelia ready for school. I needed to act normal, natural, like nothing had happened. The shower water was scalding, but I couldn't wash away the guilt clinging to my skin. Bryce's cologne still lingered in my hair. I scrubbed harder, watching the hotel soap circle down the drain. Downstairs, Nathan stood at the counter in his navy suit, stirring sugar into his coffee. He looked up when I entered, and something flickered across his face. Concern? Suspicion? I couldn't tell. "How was the trip?" he asked quietly. "Exhausting," I said, pouring myself coffee with shaking hands. "You know how these conferences are. Meeting after meeting. I barely had time to think." "Daddy, Mommy's back." Amelia bounced into the kitchen wearing her school uniform, backpack already strapped on. She hugged my waist, and I felt another stab of guilt. "I missed you, sweetheart," I said, smoothing her dark hair. "Did you and Daddy have fun while I was gone?" "We made pancakes and watched movies," she said. "Daddy let me stay up late on Friday." Nathan's eyes met mine over Amelia's head. "She was worried about you. You didn't call Friday night like you promised." My stomach clenched. Friday night, the night everything went wrong. "I'm sorry, baby," I told Amelia. "The meetings ran really late. I was so tired I fell asleep right after dinner." It wasn't entirely a lie. I had fallen asleep, just not in my own room. Nathan drove Amelia to school while I got ready for work. When he returned, I was applying concealer under my eyes, trying to hide the evidence of my sleepless night. "Vez," he said from the bathroom doorway, "are you okay? You seem different." I forced a laugh. "Just jet lag. Denver's 2 hours behind, remember? My body clock is all messed up." He nodded slowly, but I caught him watching me in the mirror. Nathan had always been observant. It's what made him good at his job as an accountant. Details mattered to him. "I should get going," I said, grabbing my purse. Big day catching up on everything I missed. He kissed my cheek, a routine gesture that felt like a betrayal. "Love you," he said automatically. "Love you too," I replied, the words tasting like ash. At work, I tried to focus on emails and reports, but my mind kept drifting back to Friday night. Bryce had been charming at the hotel bar, buying rounds for the whole team. When everyone else went to bed, he suggested one more drink. Just the two of us. I should have said no, should have gone to my room. But I was angry at Nathan for being distant lately, frustrated with our routine suburban life, and Bryce made me feel interesting again, desired. Now, watching him through his office window as he took calls and reviewed contracts, I wondered what he was thinking. Did he regret it? Was he planning to tell his wife, Elise? My phone buzzed. "Nathan, can we talk when you get home about the credit card statement?" My blood turned to ice. The hotel bar charges. I'd forgotten about those. I typed back, "Sure, probably just conference expenses. I'll explain everything." But as I stared at the message, I realized I was already planning my next lie. The office break room buzzed with Monday morning gossip. I grabbed a coffee and tried to look casual, But my friend Karina Mendez cornered me by the sugar packets. "Girl, you look rough," she said, studying my face. "That conference really took it out of you, huh?" Karina was 29, single, and lived for workplace drama. She'd covered for me when I called in sick last month after a particularly bad fight with Nathan, and I knew I could count on her loyalty. "You have no idea," I said, stirring my coffee. 3 days of presentations and networking events. I'm wiped out. "Well, you missed quite the show here Friday afternoon," she said, lowering her voice. "Janet from accounting had a complete meltdown about the quarterly reports, started crying right at her desk." I nodded, only half listening. Through the break room window, I could see Bryce in his office, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. He looked completely normal, unaffected. "Speaking of Friday," Karina continued, "my cousin works at the Marriott downtown, where your conference was. She mentioned seeing some people from Morrison at the bar pretty late." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. "Oh, really?" "Yeah, she said it looked like quite the party. Saw you and Mr. Carroway having what looked like a pretty intense conversation." I forced a laugh. "Intense, please. He was probably boring me with budget projections. You know how he gets when he's had a few drinks." Karina's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's not exactly how she described it. Said you two looked pretty cozy. Left together around midnight." "We didn't leave together," I said quickly. "I mean, we were both heading up at the same time, but that's just coincidence. The elevators are right there by the bar." "Ves," Karina said carefully, "you know I'm on your side, right? But people talk, and if someone saw something—" "There's nothing to see," I snapped. "God, can't a woman have a professional conversation without people making it into some big scandal? This is exactly the kind of sexist bullshit that keeps women from advancing in the workplace." Karina held up her hands. Okay. I'm just looking out for you. You know how rumors spread around here." I softened my tone. "I know, and I appreciate it, but there's literally nothing to worry about. Bryce and I are colleagues. That's it." As I walked back to my desk, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You looked pretty cozy at the bar Friday night. Might want to be more careful." My hand started shaking. Someone had been watching. Someone new. I deleted the message and tried to focus on work, but paranoia crept up my spine. Every conversation that stopped, when I walked by, every glance in my direction, felt loaded with suspicion. Around lunch, my mother-in-law Joan called. "Vesperine, dear, how was your trip?" Joan had never liked me, though she tried to hide it behind polite concern. She thought Nathan had married beneath him, and she wasn't entirely wrong. Her son was steady, reliable, kind, everything I sometimes felt I didn't deserve. "It went well, thank you for asking." "Nathan seemed worried about you. Said you've been distant lately." I gripped the phone tighter. "Just work stress. You know how it is." "Actually, I don't. I was a stay-at-home mother. I put my family first." The judgment in her voice was clear. Joan had never understood why I kept working after Amelia was born, why I traveled for conferences, why I couldn't be satisfied with Nathan's income alone. "Well, we all make different choices," I said coolly. "Indeed we do. I just hope you're making the right ones." After she hung up, I sat staring at my computer screen, the words blurring together. My mother Janice would have a completely different reaction. She'd raised me to be independent, to never rely on a man for anything. When I called her that evening, her response was predictable. "Nathan's being paranoid," she said after I explained his questions about the credit card charges. "Men get insecure when their wives are successful. He probably feels threatened by your professional relationships." "It's not like that, Mom." "Isn't it? You're dynamic, intelligent, attractive. You work with sophisticated people while he sits in his little cubicle adding numbers all day. Of course he's going to be suspicious of any man who appreciates your qualities." Her words should have been comforting, but they felt like poison. She was giving me permission to justify anything, to blame Nathan for my own choices. "Maybe you're right," I said quietly. "I know I'm right. Don't let him make you feel guilty for being successful. You deserve respect, not interrogation. But as I hung up, I wondered who was really doing the disrespecting. That night, Nathan was quiet during dinner. Amelia chatted about her day at school while he pushed food around his plate, occasionally glancing at me with an expression I couldn't read. After we put Amelia to bed, he pulled out his laptop and the credit card statement. "These charges from Friday night," he said, pointing to the screen. "The hotel bar, $68 between 11 p.m. and midnight. That's a lot for one person." "I wasn't drinking alone," I said. "The whole team was there." "Until midnight?" "Some of us were. We were celebrating closing the Henderson account." "You didn't mention celebrating when you called Thursday." I felt trapped, caught between truth and lies. It was spontaneous. Someone suggested drinks after the final presentation. Nathan nodded slowly, but his eyes remained fixed on the charges. "And this room service charge Saturday morning? Breakfast for two?" My heart stopped. I'd completely forgotten about that. I was hungover, ordered extra food thinking I'd eat more, but couldn't keep it down. You know how I get with hangovers. He closed the laptop without another word, but I could feel his doubt radiating across the room like heat from a fire. That night, as he lay beside me in the dark, I listened to his breathing and knew everything was about to change. Sunday brunch at Café Luna was supposed to be a fresh start. Nathan, Amelia, and I sat at our usual table by the window, trying to look like a normal family. But the tension between Nathan and me was thick enough to cut with a knife. Joan arrived first, impeccably dressed as always, her silver hair perfectly styled. She kissed Nathan's cheek and gave me a polite nod before settling into her chair. "You look tired, dear," she said to Nathan. "Everything all right?" "Just work stuff," he replied, not meeting her eyes. Kellen, Nathan's younger brother, showed up 10 minutes later with his usual energy. At 31, he was everything Nathan wasn't: loud, opinionated, and quick to take sides. He worked in construction and had opinions about everything. "Sorry I'm late," he said, sliding into his chair. "Traffic was insane." My mother Janice arrived last, as usual, making an entrance in her bright red coat and oversized sunglasses. She'd always believed in standing out, in demanding attention, and she'd raised me to do the same. "Darling," she said, kissing my cheek dramatically, "you look wonderful. That conference obviously agreed with you." I caught Nathan's slight wince and felt a flutter of irritation. Why couldn't he just let it go? "So, tell us about Denver," Joan said as we ordered our meals. Nathan said it was very eventful. "It was productive," I said carefully. "Good networking opportunities. I made some valuable connections." "I'm sure you did," Kellen said, and something in his tone made me look at him sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that you've always been good at making connections." Nathan shot his brother a warning look, but Kellen ignored it. "Actually," Janice interjected, "I think it's wonderful that Vess is so successful in her career. Not every woman has the confidence to network effectively in male-dominated environments." "Oh, I'm sure she fits right in," Joan said dryly. The conversation continued in this vein, with subtle digs and loaded comments flying across the table. Amelia colored quietly in her activity book, oblivious to the adult tensions swirling around her. I decided to take control of the narrative. "Nathan's been so paranoid since I got back," I said with a laugh, "questioning every charge on the credit card, every phone call. You'd think I was having an affair or something." The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan's fork froze halfway to his mouth. "I mean, seriously," I continued, emboldened by my mother's encouraging nod. "I work hard, I travel for business, I network with colleagues, and somehow that makes me suspicious. It's like he doesn't trust me to be professional." "Maybe he has reasons to be concerned," Joan said quietly. "Like what?" I challenged. "Like the fact that I'm successful? That I have ambition beyond this suburban bubble we live in?" "Vess," Nathan said quietly, "maybe we shouldn't..." "Shouldn't what?" Talk about how you've been treating me like a criminal. How you interrogate me about every business dinner, every conference call. I was getting louder, and other diners were starting to stare, but I couldn't stop myself. The guilt and fear of the past few days transformed into righteous anger. I work my ass off to contribute to this family, and instead of support, I get suspicion. Instead of pride in my accomplishments, I get accusations. What accomplishments? Kellen asked bluntly. You work in HR. You're not exactly running Fortune 500 companies. Kellen, Nathan warned. No, let him talk, I said. Let's hear what he really thinks about working women. I think working women are great, Kellen said. I think women who cheat on their husbands and then play victim are garbage. The table erupted. Janice gasped. Joan's eyes went wide, and Nathan grabbed his brother's arm. You don't know what you're talking about, I said, my voice shaking. Don't I? Because I heard some interesting things about your Denver trip. My buddy Jake works security at the Marriott downtown. Says he saw you and some older guy getting pretty friendly in the elevator Friday night. My blood turned to ice. That's ridiculous. Is it? Because he described you perfectly, down to that blue dress you wore to the conference dinner. Nathan was staring at me now, his face pale. Vez? It's not what it sounds like, I said quickly. I was helping my boss with some files. We were both staying on the same floor, the elevator. Cut the shit, Kellen said. Jake saw you kiss him. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Amelia looked up from her coloring book, sensing the change in atmosphere. Mommy, what's wrong? Nothing, sweetheart, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Nathan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I need some air. He walked out of the restaurant without another word, leaving his phone on the table. As I reached for it, trying to think of damage control, I glimpsed his recent calls. There, between calls to his office and his dentist, was a number I recognized. Matthews and Associates. Divorce attorneys. My world tilted sideways. Well, Joan said, standing and gathering her purse, I think this brunch is over. She followed Nathan outside, leaving me sitting with Janice, Kellen, and Amelia, who was now crying because everyone was upset and she didn't understand why. This is all Nathan's fault, Janice said firmly. If he made you feel appreciated at home, you wouldn't need to find validation elsewhere. But for the first time, her automatic defense of me felt hollow. As I looked at my daughter's confused, tear-streaked face, I realized that no amount of justification could undo what I'd done. And Nathan wasn't coming back to the table. Nathan didn't come home until after midnight. I'd been pacing the living room for hours, rehearsing explanations, preparing defenses. When I heard his key in the lock, my heart hammered against my ribs. He looked exhausted. His tie was loosened, his usually perfect hair disheveled. He'd been driving around for hours, thinking, planning. Where's Amelia? He asked quietly. Asleep. She was upset about brunch. I told her everyone was just tired. He nodded and walked to his desk in the corner of the living room. From the bottom drawer, he pulled out a manila folder. My stomach dropped. We need to talk, he said. Nathan, I can explain. Sit down. His voice was calm, controlled, but there was steel underneath. I'd never heard him use that tone before. I sat on the edge of the couch, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. He opened the folder and spread papers across the coffee table. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, phone records. My throat closed up. Friday night, he said, pointing to a highlighted charge. Hotel bar, 11:15 p.m. to 12:07 a.m., $68. I told you we were celebrating. Saturday morning, room service, breakfast for two, delivered to room 412. He looked up at me. That's not your room number, Vess. Your room was 628. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I called the hotel, he continued, spoke to the manager. Room 412 was registered to Bryce Carroway. The evidence was laid out like a prosecutor's case. I felt like I was suffocating. And these, he said, sliding over printed screenshots. Text messages from your phone to Bryce's number. Friday night, Saturday morning, Sunday afternoon. I recognized them immediately. The flirty messages I'd sent, thinking I was being discreet. The planning of our next meeting. The promises to keep everything secret. How did you... Our phone plan, family sharing. I've always been able to see the numbers you text, Ves. I just never had a reason to look before. Tears started streaming down my face. Not tears of remorse, but tears of being caught, of losing control of the situation. Nathan, please, let me explain. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it? I scrambled for the story I'd been crafting. Bryce was going through a rough patch with his wife. He needed someone to talk to. We had a few drinks, and he got emotional. I helped him back to his room because he was drunk and... You spent the night. I fell asleep in the chair. I was drunk too, and I didn't want to stumble around the hotel alone at that hour. Nothing happened, Nathan. I swear to you, nothing happened. He stared at me for a long moment, then pulled out another paper. A hotel keycard log. This shows your keycard being used to enter room 412 at 12:23 a.m. Friday night. It shows the same keycard being used to exit that room at 8:47 a.m. Saturday morning. My lies crumbled around me like a house of cards. The breakfast was ordered at 8:15 a.m., he continued, 32 minutes before you left his room. So either you ordered breakfast for a man you claim nothing happened with, or you're lying about everything. I broke down completely then, sobbing into my hands. Nathan, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. A terrible, stupid mistake. I was drunk and lonely and... Lonely? His voice cracked. We've been married 9 years, Ves. We have a daughter together. How could you be lonely? You've been so distant lately. We barely talk anymore. We don't go out. We don't do anything together. I felt like we were just roommates. So you decided to sleep with your boss? The words hung between us like a slap. I looked up at him through my tears, and for the first time, I saw something I'd never seen in Nathan's eyes before. Contempt. It just happened, I whispered. We were talking and drinking, and one thing led to another. I never meant for it to happen. But it did happen, and then you came home and lied to me. To our daughter. You looked me in the eye and lied. I was trying to protect you. I knew it would hurt you, and I couldn't bear... Protect me? He stood up, his calm facade finally cracking. You think lying to me protects me? You think making me feel crazy for asking questions protects me? Nathan, do you love him? The question stopped me cold. What? Bryce, do you love him? No, God, no, it was just physical. It didn't mean anything. That's supposed to make me feel better, that you threw away our marriage for something that didn't mean anything. I reached for him, but he stepped back. I didn't throw away our marriage. We can work through this. Couples do it all the time. We can go to counseling. We can... We? The single word was like ice water. There is no we anymore, Ves. You made that choice when you got into his bed. Don't say that. Please don't say that. I love you. I love our family. You love the idea of us, the security, the respectability, but you don't love me enough to be faithful to me. He started gathering up the papers, putting them back in the folder. I'm staying at my brother's tonight, he said. I need time to think. Nathan, please. I heard what you said at brunch today, about me being paranoid, about me not trusting you. You made me look like a fool in front of our families. I was defensive. I was scared. You were cruel. He picked up his overnight bag from by the door. He'd already packed before coming in. And you used our daughter as a shield, talking about how your behavior affects the family. But you didn't think about Amelia when you were in his bed, did you? The accusation hit me like a physical blow. That's not fair. Fair? He laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you remembering you had a husband and daughter before you decided to fuck your boss. I'd never heard Nathan use that word before. Never seen him this angry. It scared me. When I come back tomorrow, I want you to have decided what you're going to tell Amelia, he said, because I won't lie to her. I won't pretend everything is fine when it's not. You can't tell her about this. She's 7 years old. I'm not going to give her details, Ves, but I'm not going to lie about why Daddy is sleeping somewhere else. He headed for the door, then turned back. One more thing. I want you to quit your job. What? Nathan, you can't be serious. We need my income. We need you away from him. If there's any chance of saving this marriage, you need to cut all contact with Bryce Carroway. I can't just quit. I have responsibilities, projects. You should have thought of that before you slept with him. The door closed behind him with a quiet click that sounded like the end of everything. I sank onto the couch, surrounded by the evidence of my betrayal, and realized that for the first time in my life, I couldn't talk my way out of the mess I'd made. The next morning, Amelia asked where Daddy was. He had to leave early for work, I lied, scrambling eggs with shaking hands. He'll be home later. But Nathan didn't come home later, or the next day, or the day after that. At work, everything was falling apart. The office gossip mill had gone into overdrive after Kellen's revelation at brunch. People whispered in corners and stopped talking when I walked by. Karina avoided me completely, suddenly too busy to chat by the coffee machine. Bryce called me into his office Wednesday afternoon. He looked uncomfortable, his usual confidence replaced by nervous energy. "We need to talk," he said, closing the door behind me. "If this is about what happened in Denver, it is." He sat behind his desk, putting physical distance between us. "I've been hearing rumors about us. People talk. It doesn't mean anything. It means everything, Ves. I have a reputation to protect, a marriage, a career." I stared at him, seeing him clearly for the first time. The charm was gone, replaced by cold calculation. I'd been a distraction, nothing more. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying we need to be very careful about how we handle this. If anyone asks, nothing happened between us. We're colleagues. That's all." "What about the texts? The things you said? What things? I don't recall any inappropriate communications." The dismissal in his voice was like a slap. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious, and I think it would be best if you requested a transfer to another department, or perhaps looked for opportunities elsewhere." "You're firing me." "I'm suggesting that it might be in everyone's best interest if we minimized our professional contact going forward." I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make him acknowledge what we'd shared. But looking at his cold, distant expression, I realized that to him, I was already gone. That afternoon, I picked Amelia up from school and saw Nathan waiting by his car in the parking lot. My heart leaped. Maybe he was ready to talk, to work things out. But when I approached him, his face was stone. "I'm taking Amelia for dinner," he said. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About why Daddy hasn't been home." Panic fluttered in my chest. "Nathan, you promised." "I promised not to give her details. I didn't promise to lie indefinitely." "Mummy, why does Daddy look sad?" Amelia asked, tugging on my sleeve. I knelt down to her level, forcing a smile. "Daddy's just tired, sweetheart. You go have fun at dinner, okay?" As I watched Nathan drive away with our daughter, I felt more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. That evening, my mother called. "How are things with Nathan?" she asked. "Not good. He's staying at his brother's. He wants me to quit my job." "Quit your job? That's ridiculous. He can't control your career because of his insecurities." "Mom, it's not that simple. I made a mistake." "You made a human error in judgment. That doesn't give him the right to destroy your professional life." "He's talking about telling Amelia." "Telling her what? That Mommy has a career and Daddy can't handle it. Vesperine, you cannot let him manipulate you like this. You have rights. You have options." Her words should have been empowering, but they felt hollow. She didn't understand the weight of what I'd done, the damage I'd caused. Thursday morning, I came home from dropping Amelia at school to find a courier envelope on my kitchen table. With trembling hands, I opened it. Legal documents, petition for legal separation. temporary custody arrangement, a list of assets to be divided. Nathan was serious. This wasn't a threat or a negotiating tactic. He was actually leaving me. I called him immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. "Nathan, please," I said into voicemail for the third time that morning, my voice cracking in places I couldn't control. "We need to talk about this. You can't just make decisions about our family without discussing them with me. Call me back." I hung up and stared at my phone like it might suddenly change its mind, like the silence was a glitch I could restart. Minutes passed, then an hour, then the whole day, heavy and unmoving, as if time itself had decided to punish me by slowing down. He didn't call back, not once. By Friday afternoon, the sky had turned that dull, wintry grey that made everything look flatter and older. I was still in yesterday's sweatshirt, still pretending I was working from home, even though I hadn't opened my laptop since Nathan handed me the envelope. I jumped at every sound from outside: mail truck, neighbor's car, a dog barking, each one briefly convincing me it was his Honda, that he'd changed his mind, that he was about to walk up the driveway and say we would handle this like adults. The knock came hard, sharp, not hesitant. When I opened the door, Joan stood on my porch in a perfectly pressed coat, gloves neat in one hand, hair pinned back like she'd prepared for battle. Her face wasn't shouting, but her eyes were. Controlled fury, disciplined and purposeful, the kind that didn't waste energy on dramatics because it didn't need to. "We need to talk," she said. "Joan, I don't think—" "My son is sleeping on his brother's couch because of you," she cut in, stepping forward like my refusal wasn't an option. "My granddaughter is confused and upset because her mother destroyed her family. So, yes, we are going to talk." I stepped aside because I didn't know how to stop her without making myself look worse. She walked into my living room as if she'd lived here for years, as if she'd been silently evaluating every corner all along. Her gaze flicked over the throw blankets, the framed photos, the little ceramic bowl Amelia had made in art class. She paused on that one, just a second, then continued, as if even the evidence of my daughter's innocence offended her. She didn't sit. She stood near the fireplace with her back straight, hands clasped, like she was about to deliver a verdict. "I never liked you," she said without preamble. My throat tightened. "Joan—" "No," she said, holding up a hand. "Let me finish. I thought Nathan could do better. I thought you were charming, sure, and clever, and you knew how to make people laugh at dinner, but I never believed you were steady. I never believed you were the kind of woman who would still be standing when the novelty wore off and real life got hard." I felt my face burning. "I was steady. I am steady. You're not," she said calmly, and somehow that calmness hurt more than screaming would have. "You were steady when it was convenient, when it came with security and a nice home and a husband who didn't demand too much. But the moment you felt bored or unseen, you went looking for something shiny to make you feel alive." The word shiny made my stomach turn. It sounded so small, so childish. "Instead," she continued, "you proved me right in the worst possible way. You cheated on my son. You humiliated him. You broke up your daughter's home for what? A fling with your boss?" "It wasn't supposed to happen," I whispered, and the sentence sounded pathetic as soon as it left my mouth. "I never meant—" "I don't care what you meant." Joan's eyes didn't flicker. "I care what you did, and what you did was selfish and cruel and unforgivable." Tears started running down my face before I even realized I was crying. The worst part was how familiar it felt. Crying had become my default setting, my only language these days. But Joan didn't soften. There was no maternal instinct toward me, no empathy. If anything, she looked more disgusted, like tears were just another manipulation tactic she'd seen too many times. "Nathan wants to work things out," she said, and the words hit like a jolt of electricity. Hope surged so fast I almost didn't trust it. "Because he's a good man. Because he believes in marriage and family. Because he's the kind of person who will keep trying even when he shouldn't." I wiped my cheeks with the heel of my hand, breathing hard. He does. Joan's mouth tightened. He did. He wanted to, and a part of him still might, because Nathan's heart doesn't switch off quickly. She stepped closer, lowering her voice as if the walls could hear. But I'm telling you right now, if you hurt him again, if you cause him or Amelia any more pain, I will make sure you lose everything. Do you understand me? The room seemed to shrink. My own living room, my own home, suddenly felt like a place I was trespassing in. I nodded because I didn't trust my voice. Say it, Joan demanded softly. I understand, I whispered. Good. She exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for days. Then hear me clearly. This is bigger than your feelings, bigger than your embarrassment, bigger than your need to be forgiven so you can sleep at night. Amelia needs stability. She needs routines that don't change because mommy is spiraling. She needs parents who don't weaponize her emotions to win arguments. And Nathan... Joan's voice cracked just slightly on his name, the first crack in her armor. Nathan deserves peace in his own life. I never wanted to hurt Amelia, I said, and this time it wasn't a defense. It was the one thing I still believed. And yet she's hurting, Joan replied, so your intentions don't matter, your actions do. Silence stretched between us. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed. A neighbor laughed. Normal life kept happening, indifferent to my implosion. Joan looked around once more, her eyes landing on the family photo on the mantel, Nathan holding Amelia on his shoulders, me smiling beside them, all of us sunburned and happy from a beach day that now felt like it belonged to strangers. Fix this, she said finally, her voice lower, almost tired, before it's too late. Then she walked to the door and left without asking if I was okay. Without a goodbye, without the polite small talk people use to make cruelty feel civilized. The door clicked shut, and the sound echoed through the house like a final punctuation mark. I sank onto the couch and stared at the place where she'd stood. The air still felt charged, like her anger had seeped into the walls. My phone lay on the coffee table, face down, silent. No missed calls, no messages, nothing. And in that quiet, the truth settled in with an awful clarity. Everyone I'd counted on was gone. Bryce had dismissed me like I was a liability. My work friends were avoiding me, protecting their own reputations. Nathan was consulting lawyers and building a life that didn't include me. Even my own mother's support, loud, furious, determined to fight, felt less like love and more like permission to keep pretending I was the victim. For the first time since Denver, I understood the full scope of what I'd lost. Not just my marriage, not just daily life with my daughter, not just the respect I used to carry like armor. I'd lost the benefit of the doubt, the version of myself that people trusted. The woman who could make mistakes and still be seen as fundamentally good. And the terrifying part was this: I didn't know how to get any of it back. The lawyer's office smelled like leather and disappointment. Nathan sat across from me at a polished conference table, flanked by his attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Sarah Matthews. I'd brought my own lawyer, but he looked nervous, constantly shuffling papers and avoiding eye contact. It had been 3 weeks since Nathan moved out, 3 weeks of sleeping alone, of explaining to Amelia why Daddy wasn't coming home, of watching my life crumble piece by piece. Let's review the custody arrangement, Sarah Matthews said, sliding a document across the table. Mr. Rooke is requesting primary physical custody of Amelia, with supervised visitation for Mrs. Rooke initially. Supervised visitation? I looked at my lawyer in shock. You can't be serious. Given the circumstances, Matthews continued, my client has concerns about stability and judgment. What circumstances? I made one mistake. You committed adultery, she said bluntly. You lied repeatedly to your husband and daughter. You created an unstable home environment. That's not... I started, but Nathan held up his hand. Vess, he said quietly, just listen. He looked different, thinner, older, but somehow stronger too. The man who used to apologize for taking up space had found his backbone. Matthews opened another folder. We have documentation of the affair. Hotel records, credit card statements, text messages, witness testimony. My stomach dropped. Witness testimony? Your co-worker Karina Mendez provided a statement about your behavior before and after the Denver conference. She mentioned you asking her to cover for you, lying about your whereabouts, and bragging about your connection with Mr. Carroway. I stared at Nathan in disbelief. You talked to Karina? I talked to several people, he said. I had to understand what really happened, how long it had been going on. It wasn't going on, it was one night. Was it? Matthews pulled out more papers. We have evidence of flirtatious text messages dating back 6 months, lunch meetings that weren't on your work calendar, late-night phone calls. Each piece of evidence felt like a physical blow. They'd built an airtight case against me. The pattern shows premeditation, Matthews continued. This wasn't a drunken mistake. It was an ongoing emotional affair that became physical. That's not true, I said weakly, but even I could see how the evidence looked. My lawyer finally spoke up. My client is willing to attend counseling, to work on the marriage. Nathan shook his head. I'm done with counseling. I'm done with chances. I want a divorce. The word hit me like a sledgehammer. Nathan, please. Think about Amelia. Think about our family. I am thinking about Amelia. She deserves better than growing up in a house full of lies and resentment. She deserves her parents together. She deserves parents who respect each other, who model healthy relationships. We can't do that anymore, Vess. Matthews slid another document across the table. Property division. Mr. Rooke is willing to be generous with the financial arrangements, but he wants the house. The house? I looked at the numbers, my head spinning. Where am I supposed to live? That's not our concern, Matthews said coldly. You should have considered that before you decided to have an affair. I turned to Nathan desperately. You're really going to take everything? Our home, our daughter, our entire life? I'm not taking anything, he said. You gave it away. In that hotel room in Denver. It was one night, one stupid, meaningless night. That's what makes it worse, he said. You destroyed our marriage for something meaningless. The room was spinning. This couldn't be happening. I was supposed to be able to fix this, to talk my way out of it like I always did. I'll quit my job, I said frantically. I'll never see Bryce again. I'll do whatever you want. It's too late for that. It's not too late. We can start over, move somewhere new, get counseling. I'll prove to you that I can change. Nathan looked at me with something that might have been pity. Vess, even now you're trying to manipulate me, trying to find the right words to get what you want. You're not sorry you cheated. You're sorry you got caught. That's not true. Isn't it? Because if I hadn't found those receipts, if I hadn't seen those texts, you'd still be lying to me. You'd probably still be seeing him. The accusation hung in the air, and I realized with horror that he might be right. Matthews pulled out the final document. Divorce petition, irreconcilable differences, with adultery cited as a contributing factor. Mr. Rooke is asking for primary custody, the marital home, and division of assets as outlined in the settlement agreement. I stared at the papers, my vision blurring with tears. I need time to think. You have 48 hours to respond, Matthews said. After that, we proceed with or without your agreement. As we gathered our things to leave, Nathan spoke to me one last time. For what it's worth, he said, I did love you. I loved the woman I thought you were. I'm still that woman, I whispered. He shook his head sadly. No, Vess, that woman never existed. She was just another one of your lies. 2 days later, I signed the papers. I moved into a small apartment across town, far from the life I'd built and destroyed. Amelia visits on weekends, confused and sad, but slowly adjusting to her new reality. Bryce transferred to the company's Chicago office. His wife, Elise, filed for divorce 2 weeks after mine was finalized. Apparently, I wasn't his first affair. My mother still insists Nathan overreacted, that all marriages go through rough patches. Joan won't speak to me at all. Karina got promoted to my old position. Sometimes I drive by our old house and see Nathan in the yard with Amelia, teaching her to ride her bike or raking leaves. They look happy, peaceful, like they're better off without me. And maybe they are. I tell myself it was just one night, one mistake, but sitting alone in my empty apartment, I finally understand what Nathan meant. It wasn't one night that destroyed my marriage. It was a lifetime of small betrayals, small lies, small cruelties that led up to that night. It was years of putting myself first, of manipulating and justifying and blaming everyone else for my choices. The woman Nathan loved never existed. She was just a mask I wore to get what I wanted. And now that the mask has slipped, I'm left with nothing but the truth. I am exactly who Joan always thought I was. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. I got the papers in the mail, official and final. Nathan kept the house, got primary custody of Amelia, and I got visitation rights every other weekend. But the real punishment wasn't in the legal documents. It was in Amelia's eyes when she asked why Mommy and Daddy couldn't live together anymore. It was in the empty apartment that would never be a home. It was in the mirror every morning, looking at the woman who had everything and threw it away for nothing. I got drunk on a work trip and opened my eyes in my boss's bed. By morning, my marriage was gone. But it wasn't the alcohol that destroyed my life. It was me.